Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing, and a compelling and enjoyable conversation with Marian Washington. Her accolades and her accomplishments are almost too numerous to mention, but they will be mentioned in incredible depth in her upcoming book, Fierce, My Fight for Nothing Less. That will be out in August. And here, in about 35 minutes, we'll give you some Cliff Notes versions from her of her amazing life. She became the first female African-American head coach at a predominantly white institution at the Division I level when KU hired her in 1973. A year later, she was named KU's first women's athletic director. 31 years at Kansas, 560 wins, 11 NCAA tournament appearances, and 2 Sweet 16s. And before that, she was an accomplished athlete, not only as an All-American basketball player and could have been Olympian, we'll hear that story, but also in track and field. She was the first female president of the Black Coaches Association. She's enshrined in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame as a finalist on the ballot of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2023. Also, I got to see firsthand the great work she did with young female women athletes at the University of Kansas when I was the play-by-play announcer in the late 90s and early 2000s, and saw firsthand the impact she had on many, many lives. Her book is coming out. Her story is an amazing one. She'll tell part of it coming up next on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing, our discussion with Marian Washington.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Hey Kansas City, Joe Spiker, Easton Roofing here. Well, it hailed like crazy, and the last thing you want to do is deal with another roofer, so don't. When they show up, tell them you know a guy. An Easton Roofing sign in your yard lets everybody know you want it done right, and it's the best storm chaser repellent you can get. Call us today for a free, no-obligation inspection, 913-257-5426 or eastonroofing.com. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
Always great to catch up with Dr. Brad Whittle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Everybody wants to make every year a great one, mentally and physically, and certainly ASFCA can help in that regard.
Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies. We're going to address the body and the mind to keep you in great shape. With winter moving into spring, we don't want to have the opportunity to get hurt or to be slow and not do what we used to do, right?
Absolutely right, and you can do that in a variety of ways.
We can. We love looking at the body and how it moves, looking at the posture and how it holds us to be strong, to be safe, and really to help us do those things we love to do.
The wide variety and range of services you can get helps in that regard at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. 7 locations all around the Kansas City area. Find the one that's most convenient for you. And for more information, visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Marian, you were raised in rural Westchester, Pennsylvania, as my research indicates. Can you tell us what it was like to be a young girl, Marian Washington, in that type of setting back in the day?
Well, Danny, first of all, thank you for the interview. I was raised on a small farm. My father and mother raised us on what they grew, and we had a few animals that we were able to live on. It was a pretty challenging childhood in that we all had to work to make ends meet.
Right.
But I had really strong parents, and I'm just appreciative of some of the things that they were able to pass along to me.
As you were growing up and working hard and doing farm work and things like that, obviously you're developing a great interest in sports. How did that occur for you?
Well, during those years, there wasn't a lot we would see relative to women competing. But I would come home and watch on our little black and white TV those Olympic years. And Wilma Rudolph was one of the great female athletes at that time, and I was just captivated. I mean, she was a gazelle, and it just inspired me to want to be something like her. I only had a few books about black athletes, particularly black female athletes. And Althea Gibson was the only book I found when I was growing up that I could find in the library. And what interested me was that she talked about how she went about becoming this great athlete. She was by herself at home. She would hit her tennis ball against her garage door. So those couple of role models in that respect really gave me that vision of wanting to try to make the Olympics. And so athletics became just part of my thinking.
Well, Wilma Rudolph and Althea Gibson were such great role models. They both carried themselves so beautifully, and they were beautiful ladies as well. I guess you can't ask for better role models than those two, can you?
No, you can't. And you're right. It's not just what they did on the court or on the track. It was how they carried themselves off the court and the track. And you could listen to a lot of what would inspire young people, working hard and setting goals and what they went through. I mean, Wilma Rudolph was, I believe, she was paralyzed for a little while. I'm trying to remember all her story, but she had to work through a lot of challenges, and she did. And as a result, we saw something great.
Absolutely the case. When it came time to, think about college and head to college, you ended up going to the local college, but the local college would be one of the pioneering aspects of women's basketball and sports in general.
Absolutely. I started out at Cheney State. I spent a year and a half there. I often think if I had been a little bit younger, maybe I would have been there when C. Vivian Stringer became the coach there. But Westchester State, now Westchester State University, was the university for women who aspired in athletics. I majored in physical education, and it was my college coach, Carol Ekman, who had the vision of starting a women's national championship for women's basketball. It had not been available to us at that time. You went through AAU. And so what she did in 1969 really was the groundwork of what we're enjoying today.
That is true, and you also went out there and she set up this national championship, and then you went and won it.
Well, you know what? She worked so daggone hard in making it happen. Our team, we were committed to trying to fulfill her vision all the way through. And, it was really, I can't even begin to tell you how exciting it was to see all of these teams come in from different parts of the country. Most of them were touted as great programs back then, and for us to play and win and finally take that championship, it just really put the cap on all that she was hoping would happen. And so I'm very proud of being a part of that 1969 team. It was the first national championship team, and it doesn't get as much acknowledgement as it should, but hopefully as we are working so hard to get the history of women's basketball accurate, it'll certainly go down as one of the great events.
Well, there still were obviously tremendous challenges to be there for women's athletics, and that led to one of your major disappointments. Obviously, you were an outstanding player, two-time All-American, and good enough to be an Olympian in basketball. You're also a fine track and field athlete, as we noted, but it was supposed to be started up as an Olympic sport in 1972, and that would not end up happening, and that was a great disappointment, wasn't it?
It was. Alberta Lee Cox from Raytown, Missouri, was touted to be the first Olympic women's basketball coach. And in 1972, she called us to her home. We sat there after spending several years trying to build toward this event. She was told, and we were told, that the IOC overscheduled the men's games, and as a result, there was no room to put the women's event in that particular Olympics. So it was, devastating. We all left her home. For me personally, it was like looking out and not seeing anything, because you just didn't know why it happened and what was going to be next.
You also were, as I mentioned, an elite track and field star, and it's hard for me to fathom this, thinking about you and knowing you and your carriage and everything else, and your loveliness, and that you were a great shot putter and discus thrower. And is that part of how you came to have an early association with Lawrence, Kansas? Well,
it goes to our order, and those Kansas that know anything about the great track and field program that we've had at Kansas will recognize that name. Our order was a 4-time Olympic gold medalist, and he lived in New York at the time. I was a young high school athlete, the only sport that I found myself being able to be a part of, and having a chance to compete against other great athletes was in track and field, and discus and the shot put were the two events that I had. So when I went to New York to participate in one of these track and field events, our order was throwing, and it was our order who told me about the University of Kansas. He ended up working with me for a whole week trying to help me learn how to throw the discus. And he told me I had potential, and if I ever got to Kansas, I should look up his college coach, Bill Easton.
Right.
And I thought, as a young high school athlete, where in the world is Kansas, and certainly pushed it in the back of my mind, in that I would probably never, ever get to that university.
But in the end, you did, and you put the disappointment of the Olympics behind, and now you're moving into the world of basketball coaching. And how did that path open for you?
Well, God works in mysterious ways, and in my book, Fierce, I try to help, write how my journey moved forward and ended up at Kansas. But once I got to KU as a graduate assistant, we were able to, in the health and physical education department, we were able to help coach some of the teams there. We had women's basketball, softball, field hockey, and the department would assign graduate assistants to coach if they wanted to, if they had any kind of experience. Sometimes the sport was coached by maybe one of the professors. Some may have known something about the sport, maybe not. But if you had the chance to coach in any position, you were able to get a little bit of a stipend. So we all were looking for opportunities. Right. And since I had a lot of experience internationally as a basketball player, working with the women's basketball